Test, test, test. Check 1, check 2. Alrighty. How you doing? How are we feeling? Did you see the headline today? Have you seen the news yet? I'm sure you have. Boop. All right. Let's jump into some things, shall we? Let's keep this one under 2 hours. That's my goal. Welcome on in if you're just clicking in, if you're just seeing the live show here. We are live on YouTube. We're live on X. We're live on Rumble. We're live on Odyssey. We're live on Pilled.net, so go check us out on all those different places and platforms with the link in the description, allmylinks.com/AmericaFloats. Check this out if you have not seen it. First, without comment.
Treasury Secretary described you as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken, the White House Communications Director.
That was the U.S. Secretary of Treasury.
I have a couple more, and then you can respond. The White House Communications Director called you Gavin Newscomb and an official White House account, a federal government account, described you with I'd say very online sexual slur that people here probably don't want to hear at 8:30 in the morning.
They called him a cuck. Anyway,
You're, in some sense, responding in kind and waving the knee pads
fight
around.
fire with fire.
Do you think
Put it
the
in
Treasury Secretary?
The comment on that post, Newsom getting more and more irritated with these being read out loud is too perfect. The Treasury Secretary described you as Patrick Bateman meets Sparkle Beach Ken. That one was a good one. The rest, I don't think it even phases him. I think he's more frustrated. See, he's happy. He's like, hey, any attention is good attention. All publicity is good publicity for him and anyone. I think he's more frustrated that he won't say cuck out loud. He wants you to know. Gavin Newsom wants you to know that that's what he's up to. You've heard from former NFL stars who have said Gavin Newsom knows they banged his wife. Now, how would Gavin Newsom know that unless Gavin was privy to it and maybe even sitting in the cuck chair? So having these insults read to Gavin Newsom is, yeah, I'm sure, it doesn't feel great. It's uncomfortable, but it doesn't feel good. It's uncomfortable because you won't say the word. Let them know what I am, Gavin says. All right. Well, here the other day, I told you, I suspected that they would not arrest Don Lemon. They're going to say he's a journalist, but the other people are the protesters. His get out of jail free card is he's holding a camera. CNN knows who he is. You know who he is by name. So we can't arrest him. And Owen Schroyer made the case that if we want to stay consistent, being offended at the misuse of the law applied against the protesters of January 6th, that is the same thing that we should stand on principle then and protect Don Lemon from an application of the law. If their alibi that wasn't accepted could possibly apply to Don Lemon, they will make it so. And that's what we have here. A story in really two posts. One, here you have William Kelly, the guy who dared AG Bondi to arrest him, has now been, I suppose, arrested. That was the post from AG Bondi this morning. In addition to the other two arrests that were made, William Kelly is in custody. That was her announcement. Kind of undermines, or I should say, it is undermined by, and thus it is kind of sweeping under the rug, this story. Magistrate judge rejects charges against Don Lemon over anti-ICE protest in Minnesota church. So they're going to be really loud about this. Hey, we got those two loud uppity bitches that planned the protest of the white church. We got those two. And we got the loudmouth here who said, I dare you to come get me. So be it. I'm a freedom fighter. I'm a jihadi from the left. And then this goes almost unnoticed. Quietly announced that a magistrate judge rejecting the charges against Don Lemon over the anti-ICE protest. So that's nice. Well, we'll start at the top. From The Guardian. They have those two women, those two uppity bitches, arrested over anti-ICE protests at the Minnesota church, says AG Pam Bondi. Demonstrators allege that one of the church's pastors was an acting field director of St. Paul ICE office. What was their excuse? That just all white guys look the same? Seriously, I want to know. What was the rationale? What was the excuse for them claiming that that was why they were there? Because I don't believe for a second that that's why they were there. Not for one moment do I believe that they genuinely thought themselves, if you want to say it in their heart of hearts, though I wouldn't ever say that, not for these people. I don't believe for a second that they ever thought an ICE agent retired from ICE and is now working right there at that church as a pastor. Really? Hiding in plain sight every day, stared at by the congregation? Is that a great place for someone who's trying to fly under the radar to be? Next you're going to tell me that Jeffrey Epstein is the leader of a Catholic church on Little St. James Island. Also something I don't believe. Demonstrators alleged that one of the church's pastors was an acting field director. Yeah, it's an allegation. I could also say that this woman looks like she needs a diet. It's an allegation. It's also a fact in this case. 2 people, 2 slugs with human DNA, were arrested on Thursday morning in connection with controversial protests at a Minnesota church on Sunday that Pam Bondi refuses to acknowledge as a soft terror attack. We'll just call it what it is. You can say it's a protest. Someone else would say it was an invasion. They weren't protesting. They stormed into the church and invaded it. If this was a person's home, if they said, hey, that pastor was a former field agent for ICE, a field director for ICE, that pastor, we know where the pastor works. It's the church. What if, by their logic, they went to the guy's house and did the same thing? We just ran up and invaded the home of the pastor? They know that if they did that, it would be clear cut and dry that they broke the law and they'd get shot. So they chose to do it at the church. More plausible deniability, more of a smokescreen defense. Now we can say it was in a public place and we'll say that it was just a protest. But we all know that it wasn't. So 2 people who the Attorney General identified as Nakima Levy Armstrong and Chantel Louisa Allen were taken into custody on Thursday. Charging papers were not immediately available, and the Justice Department did not immediately return a request for comment. So just on the word alone of the AG, they were arrested and charged. How much you want to bet that it's all smoke and mirrors here from the AG also? They saw enough pushback and anger, but still no one's been killed or shot or, lynched. God forbid. But that's what they are hoping to create the system to pressurize, and cook for. They want to have a public pressure cooker, and they want people to be so on edge that the next time someone thinks it's a good idea to storm a church on a weekend where ICE has been terrorizing the citizens all week long, someone's going to be confused and trigger happy. Renee Good being shot wasn't enough. The other 2 people recently weren't shot in Portland weren't enough. And that's what they want. So they're hoping, like I had said the other day, either Don Lemon gets attacked in this invasion of the church, or one of the protesters gets attacked. But instead, you see so much pushback from the public thereafter, people online saying they're lucky they weren't shot, that every reasonable person is saying they need to be charged. They need to be charged yesterday. And so here's what I think happened. The AG sat around with the strategy team, and they thought, how do we make this go away? This does not serve us. This does not help us. Whatever crimes they committed, the left will always defend them and the right will never be satisfied. So this is just their opinion. So how do they work this out? I think they call the attorney of Don Lemon. They say, we need to know everything. We need to be on the same page. He has immunity. Don't worry. We're not going after him. We need to know. And then from there, they can stage a couple of moments to appear like they are pursuing justice. This looks on its face like we're actually getting something. 2 arrested over the anti-ICE protest at the Minnesota church, Bondi says. Do you have any documents to show that you're hitting them with anything more than trespassing? Nope, we don't. Do you have anything more to show that they're going to do time in prison? No, just our word for now. Listen loud and clear. We do not tolerate attacks on places of worship, Bondi said in an X post. The White House and Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, celebrated Armstrong's arrest on social media and posted a picture of her being detained. Armstrong was being charged under a statute that makes it a crime to conspire to block someone from exercising their civil rights. Yeah, I hope that that's what it is. I hope they're throwing the book at these people, because when asked, obviously they're going to have some kind of a plea deal. They're not going to want to do a risk of 20 years in prison. So they'll cop out to whatever they get, offered at 5 to 7 years, likely. But that means that their co-conspirators can be looked at and pried into. And that's why I say from the get-go, I don't believe that Don Lemon's going to do a day in prison. Because if he was, sorry, I'm trying to sit under the chair a little bit easier here. If Don Lemon was going to be arrested or charged, they'd have him right there in these named arrests. Don Lemon didn't go out and say, I dare AG Bondi to charge me. I dare her. But William Kelly did, so they're going to make an example of him. These other two women, they're like the most obvious, low-hanging fruit. They don't have an excuse. They can't claim to be journalists. So this is kind of the stripes that they earn. They're civil rights leaders. They want to be arrested. They're sitting in the jail going, ooh, I'm going to get such a payday the next time we have a fresh air to breathe. We're going to have a lawsuit. We're going to have a civil lawsuit. Everyone going to give us our payday. They're thinking they're Martin Luther Queen Jr. in there. Martina Queen Jr.'s being arrested. Our church had gathered for worship, says the pastor Jonathan Parnell, which we do every Sunday. We asked them to leave, and they have not. That was his interview with Don Lemon. So he's telling Don and the rest of these people, you're all welcome to leave. Donald Trump criticized Don Lemon on Tuesday, calling him a loser and a lightweight. I saw the way he walked into that church. It was terrible, Trump said during the White House press briefing. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible. So there you have that. From CBS News, AG Bondi says 2 community leaders have been arrested over the disruption of the ICE pastor's church services. Really? This is the headline from CBS News. You know, it's insane to me that people like Tim Pool continue to say the most retarded and silly things like CBS has really gotten a lot better under Barry Weiss. Hey, Tim, put that beanie on a little tighter. Your yarmulke's showing. It's slipping through. AG Bondi says 2 community leaders have been arrested over the disruption of ICE pastors' church services. He ought to sue for that. He's not an ICE pastor. Attorney General Pam Bondi on Thursday announced that Nakima Levy Armstrong had been arrested in connection with the disruption of services at a church where a local official with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement serves as a pastor. Is that a fact? The incident happened on Sunday as a group joined services at the city's church in St. Paul before chanting "ICE out" and "Justice for Renee Good." One of the church's pastors, David Easterwood, leads the local ICE field office, and one of the leaders' protests and the prominent local activist Armstrong said that she's also an ordained pastor. Do you see how maybe CBS doesn't care to get any of it right? They accuse him of having formerly been an ICE enforcement agent. So they're now accosting him at his church where even if their story is true, and they've not proven that to be, they say, yeah, Armstrong claims that the pastor used to lead the local field office, and she knows she's also an ordained pastor. It's so frustrating. Again, this is why they want people to just start loading magazines. ICE, looks like you need some backup. You're not moving fast enough. Looks like you need these people cleared out of your way. Minutes ago, at my direction, HSI HQ and FBI agents executed an arrest in Minnesota, she wrote. So far, we've arrested Nakima Levy Armstrong, who allegedly played a key role in organizing the coordinated attack on City's church. If you're going to characterize it as a coordinated attack, then everyone involved gets a charge. Don Lemon, you get charged. You were involved in publicizing, live streaming the coordinated attack. When a school shooter or a grocery store shooter in New York goes into the supermarket and is live streaming his attack. Part of the charge that if he had survived, he would have been receiving is using an electronic or an internet device in the commission of a crime. When you commit a felony online, one of the charges they give you is using the device. So it's not just that you're online committing a crime, but now the fact that you have used a device to do it is also now another kicker. That's another example of this is the kid in 2017 who posted pictures that he had found online, screenshots taken of the anarchist cookbook, and had posted them, reposts of these images, to the iFunny app. And maybe it wasn't 2017, was it 2020, 2021? And I say it that way because I think someone had accused, this is a neighbor kid of mine, a neighbor kid in the neighborhood of where I used to live, where I grew up, had criminal charges pressed and had to get an attorney. And it was a decently high profile, big thing for the state at the time, because they have this story about this kid who's posting bomb making instructions on what was appearing to be a meme app. So if your children are just laughing and looking at memes, they're actually all terrorists plotting against the government. That was the story they tried to tell, right along the same time as the kidnapping of Gretchen Whitmer. So it had to have been later. My point is, if you use a device, whether it's a cell phone or a laptop or an iPad or a computer, to commit a crime, that itself, the first bit, the use of the device to do it, is now also a crime. Why is Don Lemon not being looked at that way? If our AG, Pam Bondi, says this was a coordinated attack on the city's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, then there's no excuse not to look at every single person that walked into that church and interview them, sit them down and say, when did you know that the church was going to be entered? Don't say raided, don't say attacked. You say, when did you know that this group was going to enter the church? How long have you been a part of the group? Because that's how you would interview Al-Qaeda. That's how you would interview any other insurgency. That's what they've committed at the church, is an insurgency. So a coordinated attack at the church, live streamed by Don Lemon. I mean, imagine if it were the other way around. Like I said the other day, imagine they had taken hostages. Imagine that it got really sloppy, really quick, and that one of the Black 30 that they brought in was bipolar, off his medication, armed, drunk, and angry, and he's having flashbacks to an incident he had at a bar, and now he's pulling a knife and holding it up to somebody in the first pew. And Don Lemon's live streaming it. At what point then do you think, oh, okay, now Don Lemon is a coordinated part of this ugly, violent attack on the church? Because there wasn't a weapon pulled, it was just 30 people deep. The physical imposition of the mob showing up itself being a weapon, scaring the hell out of the families who were there. And it wasn't just people with children who were afraid. The people who didn't have kids, who could, they got up and just got the fuck out of there right there. They didn't wait. They saw people storming in and saying, hands up, don't shoot. And they, smart, grab their bag and go. The people who had a bunch of children and all their stuff splayed out and didn't know and weren't as fast to move, stayed and took the abuse. So it shocks me that people are going to see this as a big win. Hey, they got the two women who, seemed to lead it and organize it from the protester side. No, they're the human capital raisers. You have like fundraising for different events, or if you're going to put on a new foundation or what have you, you do a fundraising round. That is what these women do for people. The left needs people to go and get ballots harvested. I can come up with a few people, and she can come up with a few people, and together we got like 30, 40 people. And then go steal Minneapolis elections. Or they say, hey, we need a few people. It's not a paid gig, but maybe it could be if we could consider it volunteering. Some of you guys have a community service that needs to be done. We'll sign your community service paperwork. I'm an ordained minister. I'll say you're volunteering at my church on Sunday. But what are you really doing? You're going and harassing and insurging upon another church and halting its services. So isn't it interesting that they don't want to look too hard at every individual in this group and expose that maybe we have domestic terrorists who don't quite look the part because the media tells you a domestic terrorist looks a certain way? They would have a hard time telling you that it's actually a lot more like the Weather Underground than it's never changed. Okay, it's the Democrats who try to pretend like they're the social civil organizers, who are the neighborhood community planners. She's an ordained pastor. Oh, we're all just helping out, busting down church doors, scaring the pants off people, terrorizing communities. And so you're happy that this one went off without a hitch? That one of their, what did he call it? A civil action? One of these things is going to go awry. One of them is going to go sideways. And that's why I said the other day, whoever's putting Don Lemon and these other people up to this and helping organize it from the top, they must want Don Lemon dead. No matter what happens here, it's no good for Don Lemon. And maybe think about it this way. If he's not charged, do people have more or less of a reason to hurt him in the future? Think about it. If you see Don Lemon walking down the street holding his little mic, he's doing this. Oh, what do you guys think about this? And he's asking you for your opinion. Hello, want to speak into the mic? Why is it that you're a bad Christian if you don't like these people here? When did you stop reading your Bible? If he did that, at some point you're gonna find the wrong white kid, the wrong white guy, the wrong 21-year-old who for the last 12 years has been immersed in a society who's told him that he's the bad guy and he needs to shut up and take the abuse, just like all of them in the church. So I asked the other day, when does the person planning this get a better idea of it and say, maybe we shouldn't go and poke the bear. Maybe we shouldn't go agitate a bunch of people who are the peaceful church-going whites. If you needed any friends in this battle that you are stoking and waging, they would be them. You would think the people who are still willing to live in Minneapolis, you'd want to befriend them as much as you can. You're now under siege, essentially. You need all the help you can get in your city. You need to make sure your little welfare state of Minneapolis in Minnesota has all the backup and unity, fake and created as it can be. You need as much of it as you can get. You don't want to go and start attacking it from within. So you've got some probably Democrats who are in the church, who are down there praying for all the people who are being persecuted by ICE. They're already probably halfway on your side to begin with. And then you go and you do this. Does this help? I think it makes all of them targets. It exposes them. So 2 ringleaders of the anti-ICE mob who have stormed the church, including school board member arrested, AG Pam Bondi announces. Interesting. So one of these reports is going to say that one of these ladies is a pastor or an ordained minister. The other one's going to say that she's on the school board. I wonder who the other terrorists in that little group are. Just call it what it is. If you say, hey, they're an insurgent group, they had prior planning of an event where they were going to storm in and impose and physically bombard a church. They didn't use any violent weapons, but they weren't there peacefully. So what do you call that? That's an insurgency. Insurgency. It's an occupation. They raided and occupied the church and shut down services, which now makes it a huge civil rights issue. It's like if I busted into your house and kidnap you for just an hour and then leave and then say, no, I just staged a protest and I streamed the whole thing. And then I find out you're Jewish or you're a Muslim and I did that while you were in prayer and I stopped you from praying and now it's a big problem. Either way, it's a huge fucking problem. But you can see here, they want it to just be quiet, done away with. We got the first 2. We got 2 ladies. Is that enough? We got 2 of them. a BLM leader who serves on a school board, and another alleged ringleader of the anti-ICE mob who stormed a Minnesota church Sunday have been arrested. That's from the AG Pam Bondi in her X account this morning. Again, we don't even have the arrest paperwork. We have arrested Nakima Levy-Armstrong, who allegedly played a key role in organizing the coordinated attack on City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota. So again, if it's a coordinated attack, then you look at all of them. Do we only try to find the 19 hijackers from 9/11, or do you also look at anyone who helped plan the event? Anyone else who helped conduct the raid? Who else was there? Who else acted as just a warm body? Because if it was just these two loudmouth uppity bitches plus Michael Kelly, it really wouldn't have that much of an impact. You'd have 3 people shouting at the church with Don Lemon following them around like a fucking retard. So instead, you compound their the number of people, the masses. You give them a few more warm bodies to work with, and it adds some validity. And it makes the appearance of credibility more accessible. So the people in the crowd don't know now what's going on. Are there really 2 people with 30 who don't know what the hell's going on? Or is it 30 really aggressive and organized, angry people? They can't tell. It's the same kind of confusion as, are they armed or not when they're yelling, hands up, don't shoot. It's confusing. Those aren't commands that compute with a person. It's a protest call. If you felt like you were being taken hostage and someone said, hands up, don't shoot, it would be confusing. And if you were armed, the first thing you'd think to do is reach for you. Okay, so you understand where I'm going with this? Why would they send Don Lemon into a place where either everyone knew what was coming and they were all acting and it was just all staged, or they knew an ICE agent wasn't there and everyone was going to keep their cool, and this was just to exacerbate the people watching at home. This is just to anger the folks at home. And that could be also. It's the same reason why then you would not have any paperwork on any of these arrests. Oh, do we have any of the arrest work? Nope, we just have photos of the women being arrested. Okay. Fine. I already don't believe they're real protesters. They're staging activism. They're acting as activists. That's all this is. So do I think the charges are now also going to be real against them? Only in the sense that they say, hey, listen, this is part of the deal now. You're a living activist. Well, here's part of it. They're going to charge you. We're going to have your back the whole way through. You're going to go through, the court proceedings and all the rest. It has to look real, so it's going to be real. But then you even have more credibility. You can have more work in the future. You can be really doing the work. In the future, you'll have some credibility. Everyone's going to have, their record, their rap sheet. You got to have some papers. That's what these women are going to have in their ear to the same people who put them up to this to begin with. Hey, if it goes south, good. We'll make hay out of it. So the same people who were helping make bombs in the 70s were community planners in the 90s, and then, state and national congressmen and senators. Isn't that fun? The people who helped Obama become elected are literal terrorists 25 years before they did so. So this is no different to me. This is just, hey, they're going to create a new generation of little retards. Anyways, they didn't just go after the two loudmouth black women. This from newsaddicts.com. This says, key figure in anti-ICE church storming exposed as a frequent rioter. And if you didn't know, I'm sure you're at least somewhat familiar with William Kelly, the woke farmer on TikTok. He initially went viral for having posted the video saying, "Get out of our town, Nazi scum," because he saw an ICE agent who had a tattoo behind his ear of the SS. Not a good look for any of the ICE agents to have a Nazi tattoo that's visible. I would keep your Nazi tattoos on a bathing suit area if you're an ICE agent, just so that You don't have any people freaking out in public and screaming at you. But nonetheless, that's what happened. Hello, Hans. Hello, some guy 32 in the chat. Good to see you. Good to see you. We're live on Pilled, Odyssey, Rumble, not BitChute, X, and YouTube. So check that out. So chickadee check it. Try not to get a strike today on YouTube like we did yesterday for literally showing a documentary that is on YouTube. So, live on Rumble, live on Odyssey, live on Pilled, live on X. Wonderful. You can go follow the show at Tommy Borum Jokes on X, or at Float Show is the backup, or Tommy B is funny is the updates account. So check all those out. One of the anti-ICE agitators who barged into a Twin Cities church during Sunday services has also been accused of harassing worshipers at Secretary of War Pete Hegseth's church in Washington, D.C., according to congregants and church leaders. Yeah, when it's not an organic protest, the people eventually say, hey, that's the same guy again. I know him. I recognize him. He's the a-hole that travels from city to... Oh, I know. Not you, sweetheart. I know. Come on. Oh, I know. I should have known, whistling like that. The dog was going to come over here and want to say hello. So people recognize him because he travels around as an instigator, as what Alex Jones 25 years ago would have called... what? Did I just totally forget? Nope, not an... Dang it. I'm dealing with too many things here. You get out of my lap and stop getting tied up in a cable. Fuck. God damn it. For the love of God. Hey, when you have a nice normal protest happening and everything's good, you want to create a riot out of it, you send an agent in, an agent provocateur. That's it. Thank you, Lord. So, do you have agent provocateurs that embed themselves and then create a problem timed perfectly when Intel needs it to happen? What happens when there isn't even a protest happening at the church? You just want to go and attack the church. Yeah, the people kind of thinned out. We don't actually have the organic numbers to have a protest to then go and be an agent provocateur within. We actually only have the provocateurs left. So we go and find a couple people from another church, offer them some community service or otherwise, get a few people to pad the numbers up around our agent provocateur, and then send them in. It'll hopefully pass as the organic thing it used to look like 20 years ago. It doesn't. It doesn't anymore, and it's obvious to the naked eye. Anyone watching this can go, oh, so Don Lemon's there live streaming as they walk into the walk into the church, but there was no protest outside the church to begin with, and it all just started, and he's there. It's obviously staged, right? So all 20 of them are being geolocated based on their cell phones. All of them are being named and then indicted, right? As co-conspirators, because it's not like they were just accidentally part of a protest. They really didn't like the ICE agent at the church, and then someone opened the door, so they all walked in. That's not what happened. They all planned to storm in. That was the plan from the get-go. What they accused January 6ers of doing is what these people actually did to this church. The disruption unfolded as City Church in St. Paul, where protesters interrupted worship. I think legally they call it something different. Shouted ICE out and justice for Renee Good, and accused a senior pastor of secretly running ICE's local field office. That's some real blue anon shit. This is just like storming into Comet Ping Pong and putting a round right through the hard drive of their porn computer. Right. Justice for Renee Good. A man in the group was identified as William Kelly. See, they don't care about Renee Good at all. They're just using her name to trample these people going to church. A man in the group was identified as William Kelly, who uses the handle DeWoke Farmer on TikTok. Kelly has more than 66,000 followers Wonderful for him. And regularly posts profanity-laced videos attacking ICE, Donald Trump, and administration officials. Rough. Gosh, love those 9 milligrams. Gotta get it. I honestly need nicotine just to stay awake now. William Kelly is a regular outside our church. He screams incredibly vile and gross things at families, at children. He's called my wife a cunt, a whore, and a Nazi breeder. All sorts of fun things. One congregant said. Church members said Kelly's identity became widely known after months of social media sleuthing. They claim he was arrested by U.S. Secret Service in December after an incident caught on camera in which he berated a man as a Nazi and demanded to know who he voted for. Kelly later said in a video that the Secret Service was moving forward with disorderly conduct charges. The Secret Service did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Members of Christ Church, where Pete Hegseth attends, said simply they want to worship without being harassed. It's been a good education for my children to understand what type of people use these words, the congregant said. Interesting. He probably first showed up in September or October. He's been off and on since then, the person added. Since he was arrested by the Secret Service in early December, he's been on a road trip, out and about. The congregant, who has been aware of William Kelly for months and has been tracking him via social media, had said that the DC police have helped people keep physically safe. They've helped keep people physically safe, but have been unable to prosecute Kelly, which is insane. Because again, as we've made with the abortion clinic argument, if I stand outside the abortion clinic and say, I'm praying for you as a sinner, go murder your baby now. I'm praying for you, you evil cunt, as this guy is doing in an equal and opposite fashion to the churchgoers, they would arrest me and have me federally charged for deprivation of civil liberties. But in this case, he's not been charged until today. Christ Church Associate Pastor Joe Rigney says he has no doubt the same agitator who disrupted the Minnesota service has been tormenting worshipers in Washington. He said, quote, we've had regular protesters at our DC services for the last few months, a combination of paid professional agitators, as well as some people who just show up periodically. And I would bet you those people don't show up periodically at all if those paid protesters and agitators aren't there to begin with. Right? If the light's not on, there ain't a moth drawn to it. They all saw the video from St. Paul. Our security team flagged it for me and said, yeah, that's the same guy. Joe Rigney said William Kelly has not confronted Pete Hegseth directly. Yeah, he's afraid of that. But that church leaders previously worked with security and law enforcement to identify him. Justin Overbaugh, the Deputy Under Secretary of War for Intelligence and Security, also identified Kelly as the man seen in the Minnesota church footage. I see DeWoke Farmer, a.k.a. William Scott Kelly, is harassing parishioners in Minnesota. We've missed him outside of Christkirk, D.C., stalking us after service. This has been going on for months, he added. While MPD provides security, they take no action when the mob uses bullhorns to disrupt services, which is a clear violation of the law. Kelly did not immediately respond on a TikTok for direct message. That's hilarious. Hey, we want to comment from you, but we only have your TikTok DMs as a way of getting a hold of you. Kelly's TikTok account links to a GoFundMe page identifying him as William Kelly and seeks donations for what he calls a nationwide protest tour. Road trip. Help me travel the nation scolding the Gestapo for their bad decisions. No rest for demons. Our goal is to encourage people to stand up for what's right across the nation. Stand up for humanity, the page states. The fundraiser has pulled in more than $40,000. Well, let's check on that. Let's see, shall we? Now, it is pointed out he did not actually directly heckle Pete Hegseth. There was security in between him and Pete. But he's gone after the congregants before. It's essentially the same article here, but I want to see if they have... He changed the GoFundMe. He's updated it. It now looks a little different. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is that we just saw the help me scold these demons for their bad life decisions on the left. Seen here. Right? $40,000 given when he's saying, those people in the churches, those are demons, and I'm going to go scold them. But now that he's been charged, it's help me practice my First Amendment rights with only another $5,000 given. So just interesting that the left will venerate and honor and pretend to care about the guy if he promises to go and tear shit up and bust shit down and be destructive. If you're going to go and be destructive, then we'll help you. Now, admitting that he's seeking to be destructive and disruptive, that would be evidence against him and would prove that he's broken a law and that the charges he's catching are valid. So he has to back off of that and say, nope, never mind, not me. I'm just here practicing my First Amendment rights. And you can see the left doesn't really care for that. He's now been charged. He gets $5,000. Before he was ever charged, when he's just going on a nationwide tour, $40,000. All of that to get to this. The magistrate judge rejecting charges against Don Lemon over anti-ICE protest in Minnesota church. The Minnesota federal magistrate judge refusing to sign a complaint charging the independent journalist Don Lemon in connection with the protest inside a church in St. Paul on Sunday. Multiple sources familiar with the proceedings told CBS News. Quote, the attorney general is enraged at the magistrate's decision. How is it up to a simple little lowly magistrate to sign off on federal charges? The AG is very upset, like a woman. She's been in Minnesota for 2 days as the Justice Department has sought to surge prosecutorial and law enforcement resources there. A different source stressed that the process is not over and the Justice Department could find other avenues to charge Lemon. Yeah, how about tax fraud? Any of them. Get him on anything now. They did this already and have been doing this to Americans for, I want to say years, but it's probably been more like decades, right? Find us the man and we'll find the crime. And for the longest time, the man that they had to find a crime on was never truly big enough that they would actually have to show their hand in doing it. Until Trump. Trump comes along, and now it's, okay, we have our man, let's find a crime, and instead of just waiting for one to organically arise and then go up, see, 15 minutes of fame is going to expose all of the criminality behind the people at the limelight. Nope, the limelight didn't expose Trump, it exposed everyone else trying to tear him down. So they create charges, make federal charges out of these little misdemeanor nothings that were already passed on years ago as non-crimes. And we'll create a 34-time felon out of him. Let's do that. So do the same thing to Don Lemon. Take a couple of little misdemeanors and blow them up into federal charges and then throw the book at him. And then you'll have a federal judge say, these are already open and shut. We have the indictments, so it's now just what the sentence needs to be. Oops. Now you're a convicted felon, Don Lemon. That's what needs to happen here. Not, we recommended charges and then they ultimately passed. We're very disappointed in their decisions. On Thursday morning, Pam Bondi announced 2 arrests connected to the church protests. Chantil Louisa Allen and Nakima Levy Armstrong. Bondi alleged that they were both involved in organizing the protest and that Armstrong may have led the charge in doing so. A source familiar with the matter confirmed that the magistrate judge approved charges against the other 2. And there you have it, folks. That's why I said at the very top of the show, that's why I think this is all a little bit too fishy. It's almost like they did a little bit of wheeling and dealing before the announcements were ever made and charges were ever sought to be filed. They said, okay, who can we get on what? Who has committed what? And then we're going to go for the bare minimum little scrape of the knee charge, little pat on the wrist for each of you on the lowest rung, and everyone else above you on that ladder walks free. Don Lemon, you're going to walk free. It'll be a shame, and people will hate you even more for it, but that elevates your stardom. You may have to, have additional security from now on, but hey, you're not going to prison. And he's like, oh, are you sure you don't want to throw me in jail for just a couple of nights? And as fun as a sexy little bramble patch that would be for Don Lemon, they're not going to do it, at least not yet. Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, said Armstrong has been is facing the federal crimes under 18 U.S. Code 241, a civil rights law that prohibits two or more people from conspiring to interfere with constitutionally protected rights, like the free speech or the free practice of religion. So here's my thought. They didn't just organize two or more, being the two named women, Chantel and Nakima. They organized like 30 people. And Don Lemon was happy to say, look at all these people we got in here. Look, this has to be 30 people. There's got to be more than 30 people in here protesting. He's happy to say that on the live stream to the pastor. He says, look at all these people. What do you have to say? What do you think of all this? Look at the protesters. Look at all these people. Now that you can prove it was not an organic event that had a permit and was sanctioned and was made aware to all parties, this is an ambush. This is an attack. And you conspired to do it. And regardless of whether you say it was just a protest, you interfered with constitutionally protected rights, like the free practice of religion. You didn't stand outside the church, across the street from the church, and chant or cheer or whatever at people coming in and out. You went in and you stopped the church service from happening. So right there, anything you're doing is illegal, period. If you used a phone to call the people to the church and say, okay, hey, we're 15 minutes from going in, that is now use of an electronic or mobile device in the commission of having committed a federal crime. Do you understand what I'm saying? Why is it just the two women being named? Why isn't it all 30 being kicked in and dragged out? Kick the doors in and drag them out of their houses, like you did to hundreds of people after January 6th. Protesters said that they entered the St. Paul's City's church on Sunday after discovering that an immigration and customs enforcement ICE official appeared to be one of the pastors at the church. They didn't learn it that day. They learned it likely days and days, maybe weeks in advance. So that's how long it takes for them to plan their ambush attack and conspire against all of the people in the church to interfere with their protected rights, period. All of that is a felony. All of those acts are felony charges. All of that is different steps in the conspiring to commit multiple felony crimes, to break multiple federal laws. Is this coming across at all? Protesters and clashes between residents and federal immigration officers in the Twin Cities have been occurring daily since the Trump administration deployed thousands of ICE and Border Patrol agents to the area. And how many of them are paid agitators, agent provocateurs, and inorganic traveling protesters like this guy? Are any of them actually organic neighbors? Are they real? Do they actually live in town, or do they get a place for 2 weeks to rent a little Airbnb while there's civil unrest? And so they say, no, my house is right there. I stay. That's where I stay, bro. Where do you live? And in reality, they're not from there. Whether it's Minnesota, DC, or anywhere else, the traveling protester going city to city, state to state, marching into churches, writing it all out, scripting it all out, conspiring with people like Don Lemon, and then Don doesn't get charged? I have a hard time buying that this is organic or true or real at all, frankly. Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General for the Civil Rights Division, publicly hinted that Don Lemon could be facing charges for his role for disrupting the services. Being a journalist is, quote, not a badge or a shield that protects you from criminal consequences, she said during an appearance on the Benny Show. Oh, well, if she's telling Benny Johnson, then I guess we're going to hold our breath. She then declined to comment when reached out to by CBS News. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C. faced similar hurdles last year after President Trump flooded the streets with federal agents as part of an initiative to crack down on violent crime. And it turned out people who live in D.C. were ecstatic with it. They were happy. They could not be more thrilled with how clean and polite and proper and safe the D.C. city streets were. It was only people who did not live in D.C. who ever came down to D.C. to commit their crimes and were then getting busted who were upset about it. The people who need an air of criminality all around for them to blend in so that they can commit their crimes unfettered, they need that 30 people mob, that 30-person protest group to blend into so that they don't become obvious agent provocateurs, so that it's not on its face clear as day when they march through the open doors of the church, or when they push open the doors of the church and start screaming, that it's not two retards with bullhorns, a third retard TikToking, and a fourth retard live streaming it to YouTube. Because that's all you've got in this story, plus 30 co-conspirators who create the air of legitimacy and validity in a protest that doesn't really exist. If it's not really a protest, and they're just hired to be warm bodies, then all this is a conspiracy to attack the civil rights of white churchgoers. And when you see that for what it is, again, now it's not so shocking when I say, I'm surprised Don Lemon wasn't shot. And I'm surprised that the people who didn't, I'm surprised the people who organized this, who called Don Lemon and call these protesters, the two women who were arrested and all the rest of them, the intel agencies and the analysts behind this dumb little failed op should be called in and investigated themselves by their superiors. Because I would assume you just tried to get one of your assets killed. And it's not going away. If he doesn't get prosecuted and sent to prison, you're going to have people who see Don Lemon now with a target on his back. Oh, you think it's okay to defraud people and to strip them of their civil liberties so long as you're live streaming it because it's an event now, right? You're a journalist. I've got I'm here. I can start live streaming on my phone right now. Begin live streaming and then march down the street and open fire on Don Lemon. And I'm just covering an event that's happening as he did. Am I taking away his civil liberties, his right to life? Possibly in that moment, but so was he to the people in the church. And he's been charged, and then those charges declined by a magistrate judge because he's too big of a name. It's Owen Schroyer's own argument, but imposed by a judge. We have to stay consistent here. If those people were breaking the law and conspired with Don Lemon to do it, that's, I guess, their fault. But Don Lemon can't be held for any he doesn't have consequences. He can't be held to the same standard because he's a guy with a camera. Fuck off. I'm a guy with a camera and a microphone right now. So I guess I'm above the law too. I can storm in and steal things along with people who are raiding a grocery store during a riot. And because I'm filming them all doing it, me being there and committing the crime also is irrelevant. And obviously, the reality is no. The law enforcement would say, no, you're there, you're on camera, you filmed yourself in the commission of a crime, retard. Sucks to be you. Same fucking thing here for Don Lemon. Hey, Don, I'm sorry that you thought just being there with a camera would be enough plausible deniability for you, but it isn't. You've now got to go to prison. Sorry, that sexy little bramble patch, that's going to be where you're living from now on. You get that one? Anybody get that one? All right. Well, isn't that annoying to anybody else that we could see this coming? That we could see this coming, that we knew right off the bat, hey, look at the people storming in the church with Don Lemon. Look how this is going to play out. First, no one will be charged. It won't be taken seriously. And then when people do cry out, it'll just be the lowest hanging fruit, no name people with the loud horns, the bull horns that want attention. They'll now get it. You want some charges? You want to be given some credibility and some bona fides? You want to be made within your little protest community? You keep toeing the line with the law, daring them to tag you and give you your stripes. Now you're getting a couple stripes. And they probably call Don and say, hey, Don, we talked to your agent, we talked to your manager, we talked to your PR guy, we talked to your legal team, we talked to your handler, and we're not sure it would help your image to have charges pressed. For these other people, we think it does help them. We think it gives them credibility and all the rest. But for you, Don, we want to keep your image kind of clean and pure. And it doesn't look good if you get charges, actually. And he goes, no, I think it would. I think it would actually, it would give me a lot of sympathy. I think a lot of people would find me sympathetic. I think if they charged me, it would finally be, seen that Donald Trump is going after media with his law enforcement. And they go, yeah, Don, actually, it's not going to be seen that way because you're not taken seriously as a media personality anymore. You're a buffoon. You're like an entertainment personality. So now it seems like you would not be helped by getting a charge. If he charged Anderson Cooper or Jimmy Kimmel, then yes, we would absolutely say, please give us that charge because it actually helps us more than it hurts us. It makes Donald Trump look bad to charge Jimmy Kimmel. But in this case, Don, there's no reason we shouldn't be charging you. And so actually it kind of helps us if we don't charge you a bit. And that's what we're going to do. So Don Lemon, no charges for you because it elevates your name. It makes people say, why the fuck not? Instead of good, away with him, put him in prison for 20 years and we never hear from him again. That doesn't help Don. So Don, you don't get charges. And he's probably sitting there going, oh, come on. Can't I just have like a little, 60-day, retreat stay? Can't I have like a 2-week stay in DC DOC? I could probably get some good interviews in there. And they're saying, no, Don, fuck off. So don't be too mad when you see that Don Lemon has yet to be charged. I think it might be the way that they're trying to play it. If he wants charges, do you give it to him? I would say yes. I say, yeah, if he's asking for it, like this guy was, come arrest me. If you're gonna arrest me, then come do it. Well, guess what, motherfucker? You're arrested. And Don Lemon, you're probably next. Let justice be served. I don't care if that person being hanged thinks that it makes them infamous forevermore. Right? Do we not hang the assassin because the reason they committed the assassination is to be remembered? Listen, we don't want to say the names of any of these school shooters because it just creates more of the image of a copy. We don't want people to do it for the notoriety. So we won't tell you that their name was Crystal, Amethyst, Tangerine, formerly named Matthew, Jacob, Paul, whatever. You understand? There's a reason that they say they want to protect anonymity of certain people. And it's never for why they're actually telling you. And so the same kind of thing here applies to me. I see it that way. If they're saying to you, guys, it wouldn't be right to charge Don Lemon as a terrorist, then I guess like the next thing you're asking for is for more people in news to be open to committing terrorism, knowing they'll never be charged for it. You're asking for more kids to go out and commit shootings because they think it's not going to ruin their name. You don't say their names. So the argument against making a big deal out of the bad guy, I think is kind of dumb. When people say, I'm not going to repeat the name, I'm not going to post a picture of the shooter, I'm just going to remember the victims. Okay, well, we have, statistics that show that's not been helping. Maybe ostracizing these people is the right thing to do, whether they think it helps them or not. Because the insane person's always going to be retarded and insane, assuming they don't get help. The crazy person, their opinion shouldn't matter and definitely shouldn't have any impact on what the justice is in a response and consequence for their actions. If I'm totally lucid and sane and I'm working in an office and have colleagues who say, oh yeah, for years I've known him. We've gone on vacations. He's great. We go out for drinks after work, whatever. And so there's a character witness 5 times over, and there's a history and credibility of an individual, and then they snap and they kill their whole family. Are all those people who would have spoken highly of that person wrong the previous day? Do we say to the person who goes and commits a high profile killing, we can't have normal justice for him because then he'll be remembered for this thing? Like Tyler James Robinson is a good example. Forget the fact that he never killed Charlie Kirk. He wanted to, so that's enough for the deep state to set him up for it and hang him for it. That's all fine and well. Is it? Probably not. But that's what they're going to do. The point is, they say they don't want cameras in the courtroom. They don't want major coverage. They don't want to taint the jury or maybe open them up to the fact that he may be innocent. They always talk about notoriety of the attacker when they're reporting on the crime. And I always just remember the Boston Marathon bombing as being an example where they first plastered the faces of their suspects all over the news. And then when they thought that they had the guys, we never heard about it again. You never heard about it again. Almost like they said, here's our man. See him? Got him? Oh, well, we just whacked him. Never mind. Away with him. Because I think if you are innocent, they do not want you to know the name of the person. They just say, go away with him, away. But if they are guilty, they want to exacerbate the public, make you see them over and over again, and have them never receive justice. I'll put it another way, be even more belabored and pedantic here. If I, Tommy Borum, decided I'm going to go load up and get kitted up and fitted up and put my rifle together and go out and commit a major assassination, I'm not, for the record. For all the Clippers, I'm not doing that. A lot closer to. So if I personally decided to, I'm going to go and get all angry and go out in a blaze of glory and go on a one-way trip to go and commit a major political assassination. If I were to do that, and I'm not at all, I'm going on vacation. I was going to say I'm closer to just going away and never being a public person again and never posting and never streaming and just sitting on a beach somewhere. Maybe that's what I'll do. But if I was going to go the other way and get my rifle and go and try to be a little assassin somewhere retarded, the person doing that, I would not be thinking, after I'm dead, I hope they know my name forever. And it wouldn't matter to me. But the person who thinks the high profile target is going to earn them notoriety and recognition, that is like a quote unquote sane or logical or coherent organized thought from an assassin of any other previous century. A nobleman would say, I will go and I will take care of the tyrant and I will take him out and everyone will know my name and I will reign. Like John Wilkes Booth got away for a while, right? Broken leg and all, gets away after the assassination and doesn't necessarily just plan to go into hiding, but like wants to be famous for having assassinated a president and then gotten away. Again, the only reason I make this point is because when the news says we're not going to report the name and show you the face of the person because we don't want them to claim notoriety. We don't want copycats to see the attention that this murderer is getting and then also want the attention. And somehow the public has blurred that, revering the criminal, lauding the criminal, honoring the criminal and their crime that they committed. We've blurred that into now not being willing to follow through with justice. Does that make sense? The last 10 minutes, all I've been doing is trying to articulate that. We've been afraid to throw the book at people who need it thrown because the public might look at who we're throwing the book at. It's retarded. Hey, we're afraid to charge Don Lemon. Why? Because he's Don Lemon and it might be seen as us going after our enemies. Well, your enemy is attacking you at church. At some point, you call a spade a spade. Here's a big retard spade committing a crime. Throw him in prison. Oh, we don't want to do that. Why? 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 All right, I could go on forever, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just hang it up here. Head over to my X profile. Follow me there at Tommy Borum Jokes at Tommy Borum Jokes on X.com. Also live on Rumble, on YouTube, probably for the next week until we get I bet you we got one today. I bet you we got a strike today on YouTube. Because they want to willfully misunderstand what I'm saying. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I don't want anyone to get attacked. That's what I said the other day. I think it's really strange for the Intel analysts to send Don Lemon in on this failed op. It's like, sending someone in unarmed to a gunfight. Like, it's dumb. It was really dumb. All of it is to add pressure. So follow my profile there. You can see all of my musings and replies to various people here. I tend to be more active on X when the algorithm is allowing for it. Look at that. All right, I'll see you next time on a live stream. It used to be called a float show. Not a huge fan of that music either, but all right.